We have found us a diamond in the rough, a bit cracked and ugly, but with just enough style and personality to shine through. Makeruna Makendo. Do not lose Kendo magic. A frustratingly mid side-scroller turned semi-decent fighting game turned failed OVA. The series starts out weak, but did show promise going into the sequel, only to be overshadowed in an ocean of much larger competitors. Born onto the Super Famicom in 1993, the first game was a speed-run-focused platform that came over to the West as Kendo Rage, seeing very poor sales. Its sequel completely flipped the script, swapping the main character for her little sister and going full 2D fighter with an upgraded port hitting the PlayStation 1. However, we will be focused on the Super Famicom releases, playing them as a set. This is another happy accident. I'd personally overlooked the first game many a time, being turned off by the simplistic plot and janky controls, but we pushed through for sake of finding something entertaining to talk about, only to end up with very little to say, good or bad, almost dropped the video idea altogether. Once I got to the sequel, and its attempt at OVA, it began to grow on me, like a fungus, and now I can realistically see people entertaining the idea of playing and enjoying the fighter. Let's just get this elephant out of the room. Kendo Rage, the US dub, completely invents its own story. In that version, you play as an American exchange student, Jo Josephine, on a bizarre adventure fighting monsters on her way to school, so we're not touching that. The real plot revolves around Mai, a young Kendo practitioner who is accosted by a random man in a flasher trench coat while jogging alone in the woods. He surprises her by whipping out his staff, which can grant her a custom magic schoolgirl transformation if she agrees to help him slay some demons. And we never say no to a full TF scene. So we transform and roll out into level 1. You can jump, slash, and use a special dash attack that drains your life, because of course it does, with fully customizable controls, which is a major plus in this game's favor. The goal is to take your time while moving as fast as possible. You see that clock? It's 4, and you've got till 9 to reach the final level. And why is that?
'Cause fuck 'em, that's why.
The first boss we hit is Chibi Mai, who can be easily cheesed by dash attacking through her and button mashing. Yes, this is cheap, but you'll understand why we're doing this in just a moment. Enemy defeated, we jump on the short bus and get a quick look at our level time before being dropped off for round 2. And it's a snow level, but not the slippery kind, the get stuck kind. So keep hopping and chopping as you head to the right, because there is literally nowhere else for you to go. Another simple boss fight, and again you can button mash this one. Just stay low and try to avoid the overhead attacks and you'll be fine. Hooray, it's a water level, everyone loves those. Just tap jump to swim, and then it's 1 fish, 2 fish, 3 fish, fuck you fish.
Level 4.
It's a construction site.
Level 5.
Everyone loves running a train, and the boss of this stage isn't too horrible. This is legitimately the best fight in the game, feeling like a boss straight out of Mega Man X, compared to the random patterns and cheap attacks of every other character. Just keep your distance and take out his ads, you'll have a great time. Out of the subway and onto the final full level. No, I'm not joking, it is that short. And this time we're taking on the entire school, starting with the captain of the soccer team, and then a volleyball squad, followed by a final love v love against the tennis star. Yes, they have names, but I am not learning them. Confusing at first, this becomes the easiest boss in the game once you understand where to position yourself. We are on the home stretch, a boss rush that has to be done all on one continue, and this is why I cannot in good faith recommend this game to a casual player. This game is brutally unfair with what it throws at you for the sake of hiding a short game. I bypassed getting into the terrible controls or the enemies that attack from off screen for sake of blasting through this section, but this part cannot be skipped. When researching these games, I like to look at YouTubers with more experience in order to get things right. And seeing the look of disbelief on someone's face after realizing they have to start all over from the beginning after messing up one time dodging some bad RNG.
They don't checkpoint you at any part of this.
Yeah, I can understand their pain. And look, this final boss is clearly not the biggest challenge in the world once you get the patterns down. But with his 3 stages, this is essentially 10 boss fights in a row, well beyond reasonable for anyone to actually enjoy. It feels lazy, when this game could have benefited from a real final level, and more time spent on the previous level's designs as well. Not all that glimmers is gold, and it's the sequel that clearly received all the polish. While some of you will enjoy the challenge from this game, I'd only recommend playing it to someone who is really interested in seeing the series as a whole, and maybe wants to kill a few minutes playing around in the first level just to see where it started. We've survived part 1, so what's next?
What do you mean? Now we can finally play the game.
It's a makeruna Makendo too, and this one they were really trying hard to push, with the dual system release and the pilot episode OVA attempting to tie the stories together. The question should be, what story? There is no source material, and we are going in media res, thrown into a world with characters whose backstories only exist in the creator's head. There is promise in this setup, I will defend them there. Starting with Mai, already established as a demon hunter, and bringing in her younger sister as the new girl who is just learning the ins and outs, is a perfect surrogate for directly explaining things to the audience. It's just they never really got around to that part. It was also meant to double as an advertisement for the game, and does somewhat get us there if we're being extremely generous. While both sisters are playable in verses, for story mode we will be switching over to Hikari, who just wants to prove she's as strong and capable as her big sister Mai. And so with a little creative convincing, she gets her blessing entering the Yuikai tournament. But little does she know, someone is planning something very vague but very naughty behind the scenes. That's all you get. It's another 90s fighting game. It is what it is. So we jump right into our first match with Massacre, who has a bit of a guile thing going on in his specials. You as Hikari are once again a Ryu clone, and I promise you, this is going to happen a lot in these retro fighters. What this game does have setting it apart is the leveling up system. Not as in-depth as Revengeance of Vengeance, it mostly opens up additional abilities and your super. There may be more to it with the stats, but I never really noticed, with every fight in the game feeling as if it were the same difficulty as the last. Next up is Makendo, and I legitimately haven't got a clue what the fuck he's supposed to be. I want to say he's the joke character, but who in this game isn't? The only thing to watch out for is his overhead. I legitimately think half of his moves are not programmed in. And I promise you, I tried playing the other characters, but the versus menu is probably the worst I've ever seen, and paired with Hikaru performing some 90s rap, I just wasn't having it. That's enough of that bullshit, and thankfully our next opponent is Madonna, who is one of the better fighters in the game. You'd assume the ballerina is another Cammy knockoff, but she fights more like Sagat with those deadly knee attacks. Just play defensive and try to avoid the anti-airs. Hop on the tragic school bus, and no, I don't know what's going on in this scene. There isn't a translation or a guide to be found, but we have a run-in with an old friend from the OVA, Gariki. This part's kinda fun, almost like a bonus round. You only need to block and counter, but you only have so much time to end the match before he beats you down with chip damage. Moving on to the F tier, it's Maririn, who has some sneaky overheads, but it's her throw you'll really need to watch out for. Use those kicks to keep some distance and apply pressure till she's out. This next one's for the Baki fans. You know what I mean. Because he's buff. Macho is ready to snap you like a Slim Jim, with his heavy damage command grabs. Don't let him corner you, and watch out for that teleport uppercut. Hurrah, another cutscene, and another friend from the OVA, Makendo, who decides to whip it out in public, so we need to shut that shit down now. Not much of a challenge in single player, he's probably one of the better choices in versus, having both projectiles and lots of easy dash-ins that set up combos. This next one is a little confusing. Makendo, who is a tennis player like the boss from the first game, who's named Makendo, which to a non-speaker sounds like the same name, but they are in fact different characters as shown on this promotional art. I'm going to assume they are sisters, but I could be completely wrong on this. This is probably one of the easiest matchups in the game, due to her short range and slow speed. No real strategy for this one, just chase her down and corner. Having won the tournament, Hikaru begins to celebrate only to be interrupted by that one guy from Mega Man 4. Not gonna lie, Makendo is a pretty weak final boss, not for the sake of moveset, he has some great attacks, but the AI is just not all that aggressive, leaving plenty of openings for the player to exploit. Keep that distance control going in order to avoid that little skull puppet attack of his, and you should be able to make it out just fine. that random baddie defeated, and also exploded, we can relax having conquered our goal while also taking out some demons along the way. Hikaru deserves a long rest after this one, or she would, had we not forgotten about Mai, who's freed herself and is now ready to deliver some payback to her little sis. Not all of these games can be winners, but I wouldn't call either Macarena Makendo 1 or 2 terrible either. They were both enjoyable, even with the frustrations that came with Part 1, and I'm sure some players would get entertainment out of running the story mode in Part 2. It's more an issue of mediocrity. We've got 2 games and a 30-minute OVA, and yet there's very little to say. I want to like this series more, especially since they eventually released a 3rd game some years later in the form of a JRPG, and it looks very well made with cutscenes and completely voiced dialogue. Sadly, there is no translation currently, but with AI getting better at directly translating from images, it may be something we revisit in the future. Thank you to those who stuck around for the outro. This video had a whole lot of issues, and the quality may be off from having to find a workaround to getting it exported. The current software was holding this video for ransom, so we will be switching to something a little less sleazy. And with that, I will catch you in the next one.